What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode we got a beautiful hummingbird rotary, the Bronc TOUGH, that we're gonna bring to the channel. As you may well know, for those who have been around for a little bit longer, I did a review on the Bronc V12, which is already on my channel for about 6 months or something like that. So if you haven't seen that video, make sure you check that one out as well. I will link it in the description down below. But for today's video, we're gonna have a look at the Bronc TOUGH. So let's see what's inside this box. So in the package you have some stickers, your battery safety card, a user manual, Type-C charger with a wall plug, which is not very common anymore, an RCA adapter, some spare rubber rings, and of course your TOUGH tattoo machine by Bronc. You can see this is a stroke adjustable type machine. It's adjustable from 4.3, so a pretty long stroke, all the way down to 2.5. Now this stroke adjustment is a little loose. You can hear it is not clicking very much, but it's just enough to hold everything into place while you're tattooing. You have to be careful a little bit, especially on the low end of the stroke adjustments when you adjust your grip, that you don't adjust your stroke length. So make sure you hold on to that ring a little bit when you are adjusting your needle depth or your grip. Now right here you got the display. When you long press the fire button, it will of course turn on, and if you double click that fire button, you can see it's on S. It's a shading mode. If you double click it, it'll go to lining. So you have two memory settings for your lining and your shading. And of course if you press that again, it starts to run. Now it is a little bit of a louder kind of machine, but I think that also has to do because that is still pretty dry. Now of course you can always lubricate that a little bit by taking the grip off and lubricate that part just a little bit inside there where you see that little shiny ball. So of course here you got your adjustments for the voltage. Now I think for some reason these are the other way around. For some reason I've always had that with these things, that they've been the other way around. So now the display is upside down. You can do that by pressing all three of the buttons. It'll automatically turn around, but I really don't mind if the voltage is adjusted a little bit different. So this, in my opinion, would be voltage down and this would be voltage up. If it really bothers you, just flip the screen around, and when it's flipped around you can adjust it how it would be regular. But yeah, it's a small detail. It doesn't bother me too much, but if you want to fix that, you can do that by flipping the screen around by pressing all three buttons simultaneously. Now of course it's very similar to all stroke adjustable machines. You can twist to adjust the stroke from 2.5 to 4.3, which is very standard for any stroke adjustable kind of machine. But as you can see here, the battery and the display, they're pretty large. It's like a hammer almost, like Thor's hammer. So the name is the TOUGH. Well, it very much looks like a very tough machine. And I have been working with this machine, and it actually is a very tough machine. Because I remember I was complaining a little bit about the V12, that it wasn't really that powerful. And they changed something on this that probably makes this a little bit more powerful. Probably it's the the machine inside the motor that's a little bit stronger. And it has a bit of a bigger stroke adjustment, because I think the V12 was from 4.0 down to 2.0 or 2.3, something like that. This one is from 4.3 down to 2.5. Now this machine looks pretty heavy, and it is pretty heavy, but what I really like about this is that it just feels like you're holding a coil machine. You kind of have that little bit here that's resting on your hand, and it actually feels very comfortable to work with. And yeah, that's something I really enjoyed about using this. I have used this for a couple of small tattoos, didn't do a whole lot of shading with this, so I am gonna test it out on the practice skin of course, so we can see how that works. Now this is a wireless machine. It has the battery right in here with the display. Now if you do want to use the machine wired, you kind of have to half twist and pull, and the battery comes off, and you can get your RCA adapter and put it on the same way. It is kind of difficult to get it in and out, but that also makes for a good connection. So you have to line up like these little ridges into the parts there, press it in like so, and just give it a little twist, and then you have a very short and also a very light machine. So if you rather use your own battery pack or use it wired, you can just put on the RCA adapter, or of course if your battery runs out, because it comes with only one battery, you can use it like that and just continue tattooing. I do think if you are not very well with heavy machines, it is a little bit nicer to use it with the RCA adapter, because it makes the machine a lot lighter. And of course you can use it wired and with your own power bank or wireless power supply. So yeah, just a little twist and take it off, and you can just switch back and forth between these two. Now because of this battery on the top, it is a little bit harder to wrap. So I think it's probably easier to use like that sticky barrier film to wrap your machine in, or with cling film, rather than using a pen grip, because that won't fit over this part here and you'll end up having to cover this part. So I would recommend to use the cling, either the cling film or the barrier film, to cover your machine in, to make sure you keep everything from getting contaminated. Now let's get some practice skin ready and actually see how this baby runs, so stay tuned. I just drew out like a small little leaf kind of design for testing this machine. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna use a 3 round liner, a 7 round liner, a 11 round liner, and a 15 magnum, just to get like a couple of different variations of needles and see how it does. We're also going to be adjusting the stroke, so just for that sake I didn't really wrap up the whole machine, just to make stuff easier for this video. I think because I'm going to do a couple of smaller lines, I'm going to use the 7 for most of it, and just that really big leaf I'm going to do with the 11. So I think I'm going to go down a little bit in the stroke length. I think I'm going to start off probably at 4, and we're going to start with the 7 round liner. We're at 8 volts, just to see how that works. Now let's go 7 round liner, 8 volts. Let's see how she runs. Here we go. Let's quickly increase the voltage just a little bit. I'm gonna go 8.5. That seems to work a little bit nicer. Perfect. quickly do the middle line of the leaf here. Alright. And now let's move on to that 11 round liner, just so I don't lose that stencil there. And we're gonna adjust the stroke to 4.3, just to get a little bit of that extra power in. I'm gonna lower the voltage a little bit again. So we're back at 8 volts. Now let's see how well this machine does with a bigger needle. Seems to go pretty smooth. Very decent. Now let's go to the 3 round liner, and we're gonna adjust that stroke to 3.7, just to give it a little bit more of a softer hit. Maybe even a half step from that, so it's more like a 3.5. And let's do these small lines in here, still at 8 volts. That's beautiful. Alright, so it actually works very nice on a 3.5mm stroke. Now I just want to test how that runs with the 7 round liner again. We're gonna do the remaining 2 leaves with that on a 3.5mm stroke. Still at 8 folds, by the way. Alright. So yeah, definitely working very nice with that fine lines. With the bold lines, I am not so sure. Then again, it could also be because I reuse these needles a lot of times for the sake of these reviews. But I think on the short stroke it runs a little bit smoother than on the longer stroke, but you can see it can definitely push a larger needle. And this is on practice skin. Practice skin is always a little bit more tricky to work on because you don't really get a good feel of how deep you're going than when you're working on normal skin, obviously. Now we're gonna see how it's actually working with a Magnum. I have a 15 Magnum right here. We're gonna go to the shading mode. And I'm gonna turn it down to 6.5 volts. You can see it, 6.5. We're gonna pack some of these in. We're gonna do a couple of shading, a little bit of shading in the leaf, and we're also gonna leave a couple of leaves because I always like to use a little bit of pepper shading as well with a liner. So we're gonna do that. So first we're gonna come in here at the bottom and we're gonna pack these leaves black. So here we go. This is still at the 3.5mm stroke, by the way. And you can see it packs pretty good. You can hear the machine bog down a little bit. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it. This thing is packing super nice. Nicer than most of the stroke adjustable machines that I've been using, especially on the practice skin. It seems to run very smooth for packing and shading so far. See if I can touch up that wonky line a little bit. Perfect. Now let's go to the 4mm stroke, because usually I like to pack with a 4.0mm stroke. You can definitely hear the machine slowing down a little bit. So let's do the one right up here. We're gonna do the same thing. just making small circles. Perfect. It saturates the black very, very, very good. Very comfortable to work with. Touch up that little line here a little bit. Okay. Now let's actually shade a little bit. I'm gonna keep it at 6.5 because it feels pretty comfortable. I am gonna go down in stroke length. We're gonna go to 3.5 again. And without putting any pressure, we're just gonna do a couple of whip shades with barely touching the practice skin, see what it does. Wipe. Shade's very soft. And this is just solid black. It shades very nice. Now of course this part can be a little bit darker. But it's just to test out for you guys. Very good, very nice soft shading. Now I do want to see how it shades when we go to that 2.9 or 3 kind of stroke length, because it's super short. See how soft this thing can actually shade. And again, we're just using solid black. Let's make a base. You see, very soft. Now we're gonna build up. Now this is a little bit too soft for my liking, so I'm actually gonna go back to that 3.5 because it seemed to work a little bit nicer for me there. So yeah, not really my favorite machine to use on a very short stroke for the shading, but it does work. I'd rather go to the 3.5, it just feels a little bit nicer for me. Of course this is different for everyone. For me this seems to work very nice. Let's clean it a little bit so we can actually see what we did. Alright. So now we're gonna quickly go back to that 3-round liner. We're gonna put this on the longer stroke, so on the 4.3. And we're gonna go as slow as we can get, which is 4 volts. And let's see how it pepper shades, or how it shades with a liner. So right here I'm just gonna do whip shading with my liner. So that works very nice, make very nice dots. Now I do have to say, this machine does vibrate quite a bit at a long stroke and a low voltage. It's not the worst thing in the world. You can handle that. Let's touch up this line a little bit because it looks like shit. Kind of feather that in there. Let's make some more pepper shading. So that was the Bronc TOUGH. Uh, my thoughts on this machine: it's a very comfortable machine to work with. It is fairly heavy, so if you're not really used to using heavy kind of machines, it is probably a little bit nicer to use it with that RCA adapter and maybe a battery that you already have that you can plug into that RCA adapter, because with the battery on top it is fairly heavy. Now, although this battery does last you anywhere up to 6 hours or 7 hours even, so if you don't mind that, it is a very good battery to get you through the day, and you can charge it at the end of the day with your Type C type charger. And it is very nice to work with, but just keep in mind it is pretty heavy on the back end. Now, I did feel like it was struggling a little bit with the bold lining. Now, this could be something I did wrong, could be on the practice skin as well, but I have not tested this with bold lines on skin so far. So once I do that, I will also give you an update on how this thing actually works with bold lining on regular skin. But I have to say, for fine lines, for pepper shading, for shading in general, um, and for packing black, this machine is a beast. It works very nice. You saw how quick I packed that black in there, and that was not even with a very long stroke. It was just with the 3.5 or with the 4 millimeter stroke, which was absolutely perfect. And you just hammer that in there. It was a 15 Magnum, I believe, which is something not every single machine can do. This one can definitely do it. So yeah, I would recommend to get a machine like this for if you are into those kind of tattoos. If you do a lot of heavy black, if you do a lot of stippling shading, and like nice clean fine line tattoos, this machine will work absolutely fine for that. I can guarantee you that. Now, a couple of pointers on this machine is this machine is very hard to wrap if you're gonna use this, because like any other stroke adjustable machine, it is already pretty hard to wrap it and still be able to adjust your strokes. But if it's like a straight kind of design, it is still pretty easy to do a little something here so you can still adjust that. But because of this big back end, it is pretty hard to wrap it and be able to adjust it. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to actually do that a proper way, because so far I've just used cling film, set it to a certain stroke that I'm gonna be using for a long period of time, and just do the tattoo with that, which I usually do for all of my stroke adjustable machines. But yeah, it might be, if you are really like adjusting your stroke through the tattoo and go back and forth between the strokes, this is gonna be a little bit of a pain in your butt to wrap a sterile way and still be able to adjust your stroke length, in my opinion. But all in all, I actually love the quality of this machine. It is built very, very well. It's a solid machine, and it actually tattoos very nice. I'm not the biggest fan of the lining, but the shading and the color packing is absolutely amazing. The fine lines were absolutely amazing as well. But yeah, the bolder lines, I haven't really gotten the hang of it with this machine. Now, of course, I will do an updated review once I've used this machine a little bit more. So make sure you stay tuned for that, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I will also compare this machine to a couple of other stroke adjustable machines that I recently reviewed, so we can have a nice 1v1v1 that I've also done previous on this channel, but now an updated version, which might be cool to have a look at. So make sure you stick around for those. And other than that, I just want to wish you a wonderful day, and make sure you check out the link in the description if you do want to buy this machine, because I will have a link in the description with a discount code for you guys. So that's about it. Just have a wonderful day. Make sure you make some nice art, and I will see you in the next episode.